well, not that you want to show a video now, but if you go learn more, if people clicked on there, there's a really short video which just explains a little bit about the method and the analytics and the way, once you get writing, or the process, it's a creative process. You're making things, uploading them, taking them into a new world. So this sort of analog style, but we're also starting to make immersive scenes, so children could find the objects within a spaceship and then collect those and then make a story with those things. So sharing knowledge, we're starting to work with different museums now and libraries, so we can make writing and creativity really accessible to all sorts of children. We've done really well with the home ed groups and with children with autism. I think they just need, often people need something that's really stimulating, that just grabs them quickly. And sometimes that blank page, we really lose people. So this was about, yeah, an analog style of getting children to be masters of their own story. You chose the setting, giving them choices, whether it's images, the words, the synonyms, so you could move a child very quickly from using and understanding that you use this word a lot. How about trying a different synonym? But it's only actually when you see that you have insight into your own patterns that you're empowered. So we wanted to give children the tools rather than, you know, someone else saying, you know, try this, do this, building up those learning skills and that curiosity in yourself, so that you're more aware of your own patterns.
Okay.
Yeah.
How I have to ask, how old is your son?
He's now 16.
So, so when he was going through this, when you was going through this stage 7 years back, he would have been from 9, and then he would have been a perfect candidate to be working. Okay, just getting insight. Carla, if you have any questions or any queries, feel free to jump in there and ask away.
No, I don't have a question, but I do have a comment as a teacher. It's really nice when you hear an example of a solution that came from someone who had a problem, because actually, and worked through that problem and kind of refined the product through the process of working through the problem. Because when I mentioned earlier in the conversation, what we see a lot as teachers is these solutions that that are great from a marketing perspective, and they do the sort of trial offer, and then you buy it, and then, you know, great sales pitch, but then you buy it, and it's like, as you're going through it, you're like, I don't think this person really was an educator or a parent or a student. And when it says that they've trialed them on people and stuff, you're like, who, which people?
Yes, yeah.
Because it really doesn't work in practice. And I love the fact that you've had the experience, Amanda, and that you've worked this out from your experience, because then it's going to work in practice. And the constant refining of it means that you can have confidence, if that makes sense, in that what the person is going to present has actually been used in the real context and is not just a good idea. So yeah, that was just a comment, not a question necessarily.
Well, yeah, well, you can see actually Simon's pulling up on our Facebook page. So there's a screenshot here of so the children along the way, there's all the tools. So there's a grammar support, there's a spelling support, but all the tools for the child. But the children create these ebooks. You can see some examples here of the pictures, the scenes. So all the different settings and the characters you can bring into play. But there is something about the stillness of creating a scene, you know, a picture. It's a bit like standing in front of a Rembrandt, you know, just a little bit of space where the child is the artist. It's very accessible. Not all children feel confident in drawing, but equally they could have made something in the pottery class and uploaded. So I've got some wonderful examples where the children, we're really encouraging them to, you know, build their fine motor skills. So the typing, the moving things around on a screen, but having made something, you've invested into your character, for example, and suddenly you're taking him into a setting that's the desert or on a spaceship or on planet Earth. And do you see there's that investment, and children writing so much more than we ever imagined. I mean, actually,
sorry, Amanda, this one here, I was scrolling through because this looks like a metaverse kind of situation. Actually, Carla will start laughing. We've done quite a few shows on the metaverse and modern technology and all the rest of it. So this is the route that Scribe Easy will be going? Because I can see this whole concept being put on the metaverse in some shape or form.
Yeah, we're really working towards that. So basically, this is we've been doing quite a few of these immersive scenes, and we're starting to talk to museums because collections, museum objects, they're sharing knowledge, sharing information. So many children don't get to museums, and I think one of the things, going back to that incident those years ago in Greece, it was very hard to look up. And I was quite shocked how at the time your mind gets into a loop and you start thinking the same thoughts. And actually, by using photos, having different scenarios and different objects and characters, your mind gets diverted and starts opening up, and changing those thought patterns, helping change those thought patterns. So from a well-being, or just from an enjoyment or a curiosity level, allowing children to follow or write about their interests, and opening up new interests. So by approaching libraries and museums who've got thousands of archives and objects and curious things, so many children don't get to museums. One, because some museums are free, but then there's ticketed events, or you're in the valleys in Wales and you won't get to the Science Museum. So how could we start to bridge that gap? So we've been creating these immersive experiences where you can drop objects into a different setting, discover a bite-sized bit of information, and then use that, trickle that into the child's story and see how that percolates through. So making information, one, more interesting but more accessible. We've also been working with some secondary schools who have been looking at museum objects that have been described by a curator, but then asking the children, well, how do we make this more accessible to other children? So we can start to develop on two levels: the younger writers using their imagination, but then empowering the slightly older writers as content creators within the digital, with digital skills.
Mm-hmm. That's good. What's the age group you're aiming at with this?
So it's really moving. It started out initially for primary school children, but for English as a second language, there's been a lot of interest there because it's about the flow of using language, and the way that when you're learning a language, you hear it, you're learning to talk. You understand what a word means because you hear it within the context of a sentence. And so actually within Scribe Easy, because we've got the similar approach with synonyms, children are really quickly understanding that there's a variance of words, emotional variance. So you might have used the word happy, but then you could use the word you could use ecstatic or delighted or over the moon. Do you see what I mean? To explain on different levels. So there's a real interest within English as a second language too. So it's grown, and actually we're getting writers of all ages. We've recently worked with Southwark, the SWEP, who are the wellbeing team of Southwark, and we worked across. So we worked with children all over Christmas, children on free school meals, going into the holiday clubs. It was absolutely wonderful. And we created art packs. We had to do a lot of the work online because of COVID. But so we had children from 4 through to sort of 18-year-olds. And the feedback was fantastic. The kids actually all made still lifes sort of analog style, real still life, so cutting and those bits of clay and stuff. It was wonderful to see the different sorts of variations, and then uploaded their still lifes and took it into the platform. And so it meant we could offer literacy programs into family homes.
Okay, that's interesting. What's striking me is that there's another side to this where it's just for, let's say, people with PTSD, people who just want to express themselves, or anything like mental, psychological, just want to express themselves, being creative, being artistic, and it's a way of, obviously, like Carla had with her famous red painting, relieves in tension, pressure, frustration in that respect. So I can see Scribe Easy just growing and growing and growing. But in sense of talking about growing, what's been the hardest thing that you've learned that you wish you knew when you had started?
Oh, that's a really good question. They would take as long as this. I really didn't understand. Building a product is almost the easy part. Sustaining it financially has been a real, has been hard. Being invested into has been really hard. I've been very fortunate. There have been three particular investors now who started to see that there was potential here. But going out initially, it's almost as if everyone wants to have achieved before, you know, millions of users before you've even got stuff going. So I think there's one thing is the product, but product development, but the other thing is getting to market. It's a whole new skill set in itself. But we built this is really built for partnerships. And I think what's been really exciting is that people and brands and communities are starting to see why they must work together now, not in silo. I think systems have been so set up that even within museums, they were working independently, charities working independently, that there needs to be a lot more of a community and you know, there's room for everybody and room for funding, giving back. So our product has kind of gives back to our communities, to our partners. We've made the tech as affordable as possible for schools to afford. It's a couple of pounds a year for a learner. You know, it's about people having to work together, really changing times. Budgets just aren't there, but actually people's well-being and children's well-being, they are our futures, and making sure that happens, and just that everything's as streamlined as possible so that money's not wasted in terms of internal development. You know, I think the thing about being a small company is you learn to be very agile, very thrifty, but very fair, I guess, in terms of, you know, your model.
They say our experiences shape us. Would you have wished you had done this earlier? And if so, how would you have done anything differently?
I think I wished I could have done it earlier. I've always I've always naturally been, probably like Carla, of an enabler kind of mindset, where I've wanted to make change, and being a teacher and being, you know, really wanting to make change. I don't think I had the understanding that I have now as a result of a real tragedy. I think it forces you to go completely outside of your comfort zone. I've seen how it's impacted on my health, but I wouldn't give up. Being incredibly tenacious and in terms of resilience, you know, making sure, because I think when something really happens and you want to make a difference, there was no choice but to try and make it happen, sometimes you think, oh my goodness, am I just barking up a wall, or going up a dead end, and this isn't useful? But you just know that actually, because you can see the difference it can make, even on a very small scale, that it's something's worth fighting for. But I would have loved to have started before, but I didn't have the need that I have now because of what happened. There have been times when I felt like giving up, but it's never been an option, it's never been a choice since then, or an option, to be honest.
Yeah. But they say there's always a silver lining. So there's going to be stress on your health, on your mental side of things. But as you progress and everything starts to fall in line, then you'll probably feel tenfold of joy in comparison to the stress that you had before.
Oh, I think I'm now in a position where the hardest parts have been done. And I seem to be attracting now the most, I've got a brilliant team, seem to be attracting a team of, I have to say, incredible women, like Carla, Mercy, Maya, just in supporters. But it's like almost like the universe is now giving me, but the timing is right, and being able to create new jobs, new opportunities. And I think COVID has really made people receptive to what might have looked like a crazy idea in the past, but understanding that there is a place for the arts and creativity. It was always a bit of a secondary thing, that creativity and everything was about academia, and this is a route in to people being to achieving their potentials, but through just different ways of approaching things. And there's a much more open mindset now. I think you'd agree with that, Carla, wouldn't you?
In the sense of where you're going to be going from now, obviously Carla's heard everything. Where are you going to go? And this is like the collaboration situation now. Is what advice Carla may want to, or input, or because Carla's very good, I have to be honest, she's very good at analyzing. She listen, sit there very quiet when I'm very passionate, and then she'll come out with a perfect summary, if not a conclusion, and everybody be like, oh, okay. So this is the time where Carla we may get a word or two out of her, but we're interested to hear how you're going to move forward, and what are your dreams, your hopes, your ambitions, and then we can see where we go from there.
To me first, well, my dreams are, or our ambitions are, we want to have millions of users on the platform globally. We want to be creating lots of new jobs. We've created an affiliate scheme so that more teachers can start to, because within the platform you can teach creatively within it. So building more and more tech so that the creative tools are at people's fingertips, to make that, to help that bridge that and empower more people. So using tech in that way. We've been really fortunate. Innovate UK, during the lockdown, I applied to the government for some funding, and we won a bid, which was an enormous endorsement from Innovate UK in terms of what we're doing, in terms of how we could start to close the gaps with children and museums and knowledge and information being shared.